During World War II, survival for intelligence operatives rarely depended on weapons. It depended on seconds. A wrong turn, a sudden checkpoint, or even a curious glance could end an entire network. Many Allied and Axis agents survived not because they ran faster, but because they blended faster. One of the most overlooked techniques in wartime tradecraft relied on nothing more than ordinary fabric, local grime, and, well, an understanding of how human perception works under stress. This wasn't stage magic. It was psychological camouflage, and it worked often enough to be documented, repeated, and quietly taught. This technique has largely vanished from public memory, not because it failed, but because it was too simple to seem impressive. Why World War II? Espionage prioritized instant visual blending over escape routes. Most people assume spies escaped by slipping away down alleys or jumping onto trains. In reality, most captures happened because someone stood out. Wrong clothing, clean shoes, unnatural posture, or unfamiliar textures drew attention instantly. World War II intelligence manuals repeatedly emphasized one rule. The fastest way to disappear was not movement, but transformation. Agents were trained to change how they read visually to observers within seconds, often without leaving the area at all. Fabric, became so much more than just clothing. It was a tool of identity. It really mattered because it communicated class, labour, and, well, belonging. A coat, for example, wasn't just about warmth. It signalled occupation, region, and even routine. Spies, interestingly, carried reversible garments, oversized scarves, or loose outer layers, not really for disguise, but rather for distortion. A single piece of fabric, believe it or not, could alter silhouette shoulder width, or even the way someone walked. Once adjusted, the observer's brain would categorize the person differently. This wasn't about concealment. It was actually about reassignment. So, why were dust and grime more effective than costumes? Well, perfect disguises tend to fail because, honestly, perfection attracts scrutiny. World War II operatives learned that dirt was, in fact, credibility. Dust, ash, and street grime, they instantly placed someone within an environment. Clean fabric, on the other hand, reflected light differently, while soiled fabric absorbed it. Dust also erased defining features. Sharp folds softened and colours dulled. Edges blended together, really. This mattered because, well, human vision locks onto contrast, not detail. How the trick worked psychologically, not physically. The real mechanism wasn't invisibility, it was expectation collapse. Observers scan for anomalies, you see. When someone suddenly matched the visual noise of the environment, the brain just discarded them as irrelevant. Reports from occupied Europe describe agents standing still as patrols passed, not hidden but unremarkable. The trick worked because, honestly, perception is lazy under pressure. This method was taught quietly and never romanticized. Unlike gadgets or forged papers, this technique offered no drama at all. It left no evidence behind. It relied on understanding human attention rather than overpowering it. Intelligence services, well, they always favoured methods that worked without the need for explanation. After the war, many of these practices were just left out of memoirs and films, simply because they, lacked any real spectacle. It's interesting how this principle still shows up in historical reenactment and film today. Modern costume designers, often without even realizing it, end up replicating this technique. Background characters are dulled, textured and dirted down so that, the main characters stand out. This is the same visual hierarchy that, WBCE Chadusetsasiriki Nanamaz Sejian Chants Expom exploited in reverse. Reenactors who appear authentic, they instinctively age fabric, soften edges, and eliminate contrast. Accuracy comes from blending, not decoration. What survivalists and historians can learn even without practicing evasion. The lesson is not about disappearing, it's about perception. Humans, we notice difference, not presence. Environments have visual baselines. Anything that fits that baseline, it becomes invisible to attention. So this sort of thing applies to shelter design, clothing choices in historical settings, and, understanding how ancient and wartime populations managed to move through dangerous spaces without any detection technology at all. Now, here's the thing. Modern culture tends to misunderstand how vanishing actually worked. Movies, they show sudden motion, smoke, or a bit of misdirection. But in reality, it was all about stillness, ordinariness, and a fair bit of patience. The most successful agents, funny enough, didn't look hidden at all. They just looked, boring. That's why the method endured. And that's why it's rarely discussed. What this forgotten trick tells us about real intelligence work is, espionage has never been about clever devices. It's about understanding people. World War II agents survived because they studied how humans see, judge, and, ignore. Fabric and dust weren't tools. They were language. And like all good language, when spoken fluently, it disappears into the background. If this exploration of wartime tradecraft and historical survival psychology added value to your understanding of how people navigated danger in the past, subscribe for more serious, research-driven history content. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts who appreciate the quiet details that shaped real outcomes. Some of the most powerful techniques leave no trace at all.